Good morning, good people. And then there was light. Good morning. Okay, well, we got the lighting screwed up. See if we can adjust this. Okay, so today, good morning. Today is Thursday, September 4th, 2025. It is about 6 o'clock in the morning, just before 6 here in the west in southwestern Nevada, on the other side of the mountains from city, but east of Death Valley and south of Area 51, spooky territory. That's area. What's here is hard scrabble, sharp elbowed, rootin' tootin' pistol packing people who don't have an abundance of money, generally tight budget, limited view. I got mine. I worked hard to get what I got. If you don't have anything, it's because you're a bum. And there's a lot of us and them. So there's several concentric us and them circles here, all the way down to the us people who feel they control the place. And then there's the us people who don't use meth or drugs. So a lot of circles, a lot of concentric circles here. But that's a different topic. Our topic today is, our themo is the Jesuits. The Jesuits. That's our theme of today, the Jesuits. And the simple summary is, if you don't like the Jesuits, if you have a negative value judgment against the Jesuits, it's because you don't know the Jesuits. And we'll talk about that as soon as we get our other stuff out of the way. So our purpose for being here is to help our students and other interested people on this one-way journey through life. And that's our fundamental purpose. We do it two ways. One is two ways through the podcast. One is the actual podcast itself. It's the idea of having a routine and then repetition until it becomes habit, unconscious behavior, to the point of habit where if we don't do it, something doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right if we don't do it. So we just do it to the point. And then there's a little twist on that habit, is that's to have a proto-habit, proto-unconscious behavior. If every time we do the habit, we try to do it just a little bit better, just a little tiny bit better, as opposed to I'm making the pizza, 12 pieces of pizza, 12 pieces of pepperoni on the pizza, and they don't need to be perfectly placed. That's the other way. Versus, no, I want to build the perfect pizza. So that's the proto habit, is to always a little bit more perfection. Another proto habit is being uncomfortable, being uncomfortable. So one thing is the podcast in itself, which is to build better habits. The second thing is the actual contents, not of the podcast, not of the talking head, me there, but of the experts contained in the worksheet down below. Please subscribe, click on the bell, share, you know the thing. It's the stuff we learn in 4 areas: the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Physical is fitness and health. Take care of your body. It's what's going to get you around in the world. take care of what you ingest, digest, process, but also fitness to be able to do things, be able to move around, get around. Mental, always be learning. A, always be, B, C, learning. Always be learning. The world is my classroom. I don't have the answers. I'm a student. Emotional. We have to control our emotions because if we don't, somebody else will, and they'll probably take us out of the game. I will tell you, in my over 11,000 hours inside of jails and prisons, I would say virtually everyone is there because they did not properly control their emotions. They did things they shouldn't. They didn't do things they should. And then spiritual, what is it all about? Alfie. What's it all about, Alfie? You know, as they say, if you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there. So focus on where do we want to go. I would argue focus on eternity. I want to get to eternity. I want to have the best possible eternity I can. So you could say it like this. I always wanted to go to law school, always wanted to graduate from law school. But before I could do that, I needed to graduate from college. And before I could do that, I had to graduate from high school. So my eye was always on the ball, but there were things I had to do to get there. And I think that's how people should focus on life. Now, there are many, I don't know, a segment of the population is already saved. They know they're already saved. They've accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior. They don't have to do anything else. They have universal salvation because they said certain things and they have a certain belief that if they believe this guy is my Lord and Savior, the Messiah, the Savior and my personal Lord, if he is that, I am saved. Okay, good. For the rest of us who are working out our salvation with fear and trembling, right, this is for them. Okay, again, our theme of today is the Jesuits. The Jesuits. And what I would say is a starting point would be to take what you think you know about the Jesuits and put it over here. Put it over here. Because if you have thoughts about the Jesuits that are negative, it's you don't know the Jesuits. You might have had an experience and maybe you experience, maybe they don't believe what you believe. But one of the things about Jesuits is when you know one Jesuit, you know one Jesuit. Right, we'll talk more about that. Let's get to our advice from an 80-year-old. Advice from an 80-year-old. Visit friends and relatives. Right, visit them. Actually visit them. Okay, how about Seth Godin? Rankings and flavors. Here's a quick tactical riff about how we name things. It's worth considering that. 1, sometimes there's more than one thing we need to highlight. 2, putting those things in a list is a way to indicate that. 3, but numbering the list implies a priority that might not be relevant or true. If you've got 4 initiatives going on, numbering or even lettering them can't help but communicate a priority to others. Considering flavoring them instead. When there's an orange, a blue, a pink project, we can see that they're separate and all important. It's silly, but it works. How can we make sure we don't skip one when calling the roll? Can we give people an easy way to remember all the flavors without leaving any out? Here's a few to get you started. Batman and Robin. Snap, crackle, and pop. John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Superior. That's Holmes. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen. Or Monday through Sunday. You get the idea. On the other hand, if you've written a series of books or created a pedagogy that needs to go in order, please number them. It's useful scaffolding that adds insight for those that you're teaching. Aha! Flavoring them. So Batman and Robin, Snap, Crackle, Pop, John, Paul, George, Ringo, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior, Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, and Blitzen. So we didn't have 7. Oh, Monday through Sunday, 7. And okay, cool. All righty then. All right. Okay, the Jesuits. The Jesuits. Okay, as a background, my involvement. I am the second generation Jesuit University graduate. My father graduated from a Jesuit university, and he was on the Board of Regents at that Jesuit university for 2 6-year terms, 1960 to 66, 70 to 76. Growing up, we frequently had Jesuits come to our house for dinner, and after dinner they would sit and talk at the table with my father about life and the meaning of life and philosophical big picture things. And we, well, some of us, my brothers, would get to sit at the table and listen and learn. Then I went to a Jesuit university, Santa Clara, having been like, that's where I was going to go my whole life, not ever thinking about going anywhere else. Applied to one school, got in, I did well enough on the SAT, did pretty well on the SAT, and went to a Jesuit university. And then kept contact with the Jesuit community. I currently go to Santa Clara again to get a graduate degree in pastoral ministry. And was highly influenced by the Jesuits growing up and Jesuit history, especially Ignatius of Loyola. So that is my Jesuit background. We here are highly influenced in our program. Week 4, we spend 3 days. We have 3 TED Talks on Ignatius and or the Jesuits. So we don't have anything more like that. Number 2 would be Simon Sinek. He's in week 2 and week 3. But other than that, no one else has more than 1 day. So why do we care about the Jesuits or Ignatius? First, we care about Ignatius because he's a great example for people who have been incarcerated, as he was also incarcerated a couple times and threatened other times to have a similar fate. And the idea being for somebody coming out of prison, if Ignatius is your role model, if he could do all that, we could all do something. And his life started not bad. He felt probably he was above the law, got away with doing things, and then in one instant, bammo, his life changed when he got hit in the leg, in the shin with a cannonball. And that caused a period of a few years of self-introspection, down to the point of living in a cage, scourging himself for the sins of his prior life, asking God for insight, wisdom, direction, And one day, sitting by the Cardinal River, he had a vision which changed his life and enabled him to make his way out of his mental problems. But then he had to go back to school and learn Latin and do the things to become a priest. And along the way, almost 500 years before Seth Godin came with his formula, the formula of week 3 for us, he implemented that and got his first followers, Francis Xavier and Peter Faber. And then they brought in 7 more guys and created a community. And the community was unique in that they were educated people. They were educated, articulate people who, at that time in Europe, were not able to take advantage of primogeniture. So they weren't the ones that were going to inherit everything. So you have, generally speaking, a normal distribution. People from good families who are educated, but they're not going to take over all of the assets. They're not going to inherit everything. So they had to find their way. Ignatius started out being a soldier, and that career ended. So you have a highly disciplined guy, big ego, relatively smart, knows a lot of things, how to lead people. And then he goes back to school, gets an education, gets a formal education, learns stuff. He applies that and starts getting a group of people who have a common goal, a common mission. Here is a book, Best Practices from a 450-year-old Company That Changed the World. Chris Lowney, somebody who was becoming a Jesuit, but then right before, at that part where it's like, there's no turning back now, he decided, no, this is not really for me. Let's see. I thought there was a chapter in here. But anyway, somewhere in here is a quote of how they did it. 10 men with no plan. Just common goal to do good, to help people. Okay, what's the result? 450 years later, about 10,000 people were ordained Jesuit priests and brothers all around the world, more universities and schools than any other single organization. And a common theme that is basically to help people. Education is important and helping people is important. Now, the helping people that's important part could be very, very different. So in the 80s, in the 70s and 80s in the Western Hemisphere, you could have Jesuits helping people overthrow the corrupt government. In the East, in Europe, Eastern Europe, you could have Jesuits working with people to overthrow the corrupt government, the communists. So in the West, the Jesuits are helping the communists overthrow the entrenched corrupt government. In the East, the Jesuits are helping overthrow the communists. So again, you see one Jesuit, you've met one Jesuit, you've met one Jesuit. Or another thing that might be said is there's a Jesuit on every side of the barricade. If you don't have positive feelings about Jesuits, you don't know about the Jesuits. And so I would urge to watch the videos we have here with an open mind. Instead of well, somebody told me that they're corrupt. There's the Black Pope, meaning black heart, as opposed to black clothing, and that they overthrow governments and they're bad people. Just put that aside. You can always pick it up later. Just put it aside and say, I want to learn about them. I want to know more about them than the typical person who went to a Jesuit school. I want to learn, and then I'll form my own opinion. based upon what I have learned. One of the things unique about the Jesuits is they would go right to the top. So in Europe, let's become the confessor to the king. And they were pretty successful doing that because they were educated. Because they were educated, generally, a large percentage were people from family with means, especially in the beginning. They weren't poor people who had nothing better to do. They were people who wanted to have meaning in their life. They wanted to answer Frankel's question before Frankel came along, which is life asks you, what is the meaning of your life? So you could become an explorer, like of Yellowstone in the West. Or you could go to China or India or Japan, try to make something happen there. Being educated, you could teach astronomy, calculus, things like that, because you were educated. And then with a good heart, you could do that. And I would say for the people who have a negative belief about the Jesuits, is you don't have something that lasts that long, that has so many schools, if you're bad and corrupt. If you do more good than harm, you will continue to play the Simon Sinek's infinite game. Education, understanding, being cosmopolitan, meaning wherever you go, that's where your home is. So you adopt the customs of the place that you go. Instead of imposing your will, you do your best to work with people to help them see a better, simpler future. A lot of great Jesuits. So maybe now in the era of ChatGPT, do a study of send in a prompt. Overall, do the Jesuits provide good or bad? What is the bad? And I think you'll see they're good. And let's adopt a Jesuit. Yeah, that's our new thing. Let's adopt a Jesuit. Okay, with that, we're going to say and cut.